coming tonight. I'm Michael Layton. I'm the Deputy Director of the New York State Military Museum. And this is Wayne Clark. And we're running the New York State Veterans Oral History Project. And you gentlemen were kind enough to come in tonight. We've interviewed some of you individually, but I think tonight it might be interesting to do it as a group. Now, if you could start from this end and introduce yourselves and tell us what unit you were in. I think, sir?
No, he was going to sit here so he could be...
Okay. Jimmy, introduce yourself, please.
Jim Heinze. I went away with 105th, October 15, 1940, down to McClellan, and Tennessee maneuvers and Louisiana maneuvers. And I wound up in California, where Veneer broke into a private. And we left for Fort Ord and also to the Equity, heading for the Pacific. I made sergeant and got on the boat. And we spent about a year there, Tim, I think.
What company were you with?
Company D.
You were Company D.
Company
okay.
D, 105th.
All right.
We spent almost a year there. Battle of Midway was going on at that time.
Yeah.
Luckily the Japs were defeated. And a lot of us were getting rock crazy with hula dancers. And Jim and I, in the same boats, we applied to OCS. And a bunch of us were sent back to the States. And we come back to Angel Island, Frisco, and dispersed to the units. Unfortunately, I won a tank outfit from Fort Knox. Most of the guys went to Fort Benning. I wound up in a tank outfit. And I got through the OCS, got a commission, and I wound up with the 5th Armored Division in California. Maneuvered California and Tennessee again, and Fort Drum stationed for Europe. And a lot of second lieutenants were killed over at Catherine Pass. So they sent 20 of us immediately over there to replace them. We joined the 1st Armored Division, and we got Salerno and Casino and Anzio and whatnot, and headed for Rome out of Anzio. That's where I got shot up pretty bad. My arms were smashed up. And I come back on a hospital ship to South Carolina, and this is 44. And I wound up meeting Bimbo in D. Baker General Hospital in West Virginia. And it took 2 years to put the unit back together before he managed to help. And they finally retired me out as a 1st lieutenant for disability, and I come back to hometown. That's about it.
And you, sir, you just name and unit and we'll...
Adam Weasack. And I went in 1940, October the 3rd, and went to Alabama, and from there we went out to west, and we got on the ship. We left San Francisco on March the 10th. We reached Hawaii, where that clock is there, where it used to be on Hawaii 5-0. That's the Aloha Tower. That's where we landed on St. Patrick's Day. And I went through, fought on Saipan. I was communications sergeant, and fought on Okinawa. I was in charge of the 81 mortars in the forward observer.
You, sir.
My name is Samuel DiNovo. I was in 105th Company D. I went away in 1940, October the 15th. We wound up down in Alabama. I stayed there, training and everything. And then they sent us on the maneuvers, Louisiana and Arkansas maneuvers. Then from there they gave us a furlough. And we were on the Tennessee maneuvers. And after we came back from furlough, we went on Louisiana, Arkansas maneuvers. And then October the 15th, I was called in, and they told me I'm going home. I only served a year because I was Army United States, but I went away with the National Guards. asked me, he says, you're going on KP? No, he asked me, what are you, a corporal or sergeant? I said, no, I'm a PFC. So he says, put the towel on the end of your bed. The other guys were privates too. They said, what are you? I'm a sergeant, I'm a corporal. Like a damn fool. 4 o'clock in the morning, they picked me up. I had to get down and do KP duty. So the guy wouldn't let me in. They'll train the guy I knew. He said, you can't go in. I said, come on, I gotta go on with you. So he says, come on, I'll show you. He opened the door, and then I seen a guy commit suicide. He hung himself. And I had to go on KP duty. I did KP duty there. I was there a week, and we shipped out, and we went to the West Coast. And I wound up in Fort Ord. We stayed there 2 or 3 months, and we shipped out April the 10th, 1942. We were on the USS Aquitania. We wound up in the Aloha Tower, and we transferred to the USS Republic, a German captured ship by the Americans in the First World War. And we went to the Big Island. We stayed there. We did jungle training and all our training. And then they shipped us out back to Oahu. We stayed there, I say about a year. Then on June the 1st, 1944, we left Schofield Barracks. We got on the train, we got on the ship, and we were headed for Saipan. That's all.
All right, then we'll pick up on Saipan a little bit later. We'll
Yeah.
just go around introducing. Joe?
My name is Joe Meighan. I was with Company M all the way through, and everything that these fellows said, I was with them through behind.
Sir?
Oh, I'm Frank Capuano. I went away with all these gentlemen here, 1940. But the morning that they left Fort Ord, myself and 2 or 3 other fellows were transferred. My equipment, everything went overseas. I never got it back, and I cried like a baby, I'll be honest with you. And from there I went to the medics. I complained, I wanted to get back to my outfit. And they sent me to the 747 MP Battalion, and teaching the nomenclature of the guns and so on. And I wasn't satisfied with that, and I still was fighting to get back with the outfit. They finally sent me to the quartermaster, the shipping and receiving, overseas and incoming. And we took care of the troops overseas with equipment. And when the fellows, we were getting fellows back from the site, from the European theater. They stayed there a couple of weeks, and they were shipped to the other area. And we got the same kind of men from the other area, and they were there a few weeks, and they were sent to the European theater. I said, well, that's the way it's gonna be. It's not my day. So, I missed all the guys. I was in 5 years, 2 months, and 11 days. And if I was smart, I would have stayed in. And I know it has no bearing, but my brother went to Germany, and he wound up coming out as a 1-star general. So, but that's the end of my story. But when they left, like I say, all my equipment went overseas, and I never got it back. That's about the end of it. But I was one of the fortunate guys, I will say that. But we had German prisoners at Fort Ord, the Italian prisoners, and they were dressed just like we did, but we had the metal buttons, and they had the bone buttons. But they had the privilege of the camp. They were just like we were. And they went to Monterey, people would pick them up, and to Salinas, they had a ball. And they put over some wonderful Italian foods, I'll tell you. And, but that's about as far as my story goes. And if I could, I'd go back in again right now with all this problem going on.
Thank you.
We spoke before. My name is Nick Grinaldo. I serve with C Company, and like the rest of them, we left October the 15th, 1940, and wound up in the Big Island of Hawaii, and we were stationed just outside of Hilo. We were there for a while, and it moved us back over to the Big Island. That that was the time, I guess they were trying to take Midway and Lake. And I can recall all we done was string barbed wire along the beaches, black sands of California, and dug machine gun positions along the shore. And like I said earlier, I had a company, I gotta say this, I had a company commander that was an Irishman, and he hated Italians with a vengeance, and he wanted me out of the company so bad, he volunteered me to go on detached service to Meighan. I went on that as an observer. I was supposed to come back and give critiques in the field and what have you not. But he wasn't satisfied because I come back the first time, he volunteered me for Inuitak for the same business, you know. Learn the do's and don'ts and come back and give critiques. Finally, the rest of the guys, we wound up on Saipan, which was touch and go. And it was pretty bad, as my buddy here would say. But I wound up, after I got wounded on Saipan, they shipped me back to Hawaii for further treatment. They didn't know what the hell to do with me. I wound up in the 13th Replacement Center just outside of Schofield Barracks. And one day, this lieutenant colonel come along and he started to talk to me in Italian. I answered him back, I asked him back in English, you know. He says, I want you to talk to me in Italian. So I did. He says, I got just a place for you. I said, where am I going? He says, you're going to be an acting first sergeant over 319 Italian prisoners of war. They were bringing them in from the United States. And I was stationed on what they call Sand Island, in the middle of Honolulu Harbor, Compound 1. I was there with them for a little over a year. And I'll tell you, they ate better than we did, because I ate at their mess hall. But that was, then I wound up in the hospital again. I had the shakes or whatever, what they call battle fatigue, something or other. And that's where I was when my orders come home for discharge. I wound up at Fort Dix and come on home, and that was the end of my Army career.
My name is Jim Carter. I joined D Company 105th in 1938, and when they federalized this on October 15th, 1940, and then I think it was 4 or 5 days around the 21st, we all marched gloriously down Congress Street in the wet snow to the railroad station. We kissed everybody goodbye when we got on the train. We had an awful trip to Alabama. I think it took us about 4 days to get down there. And we got down there, we had these streets that had stumps in and everything else, and we had to dig them up to put up our tents. We thought we were going in barracks. And I think it was October, and it's still kind of wet, rainy down there. I stayed with them until we went away. I remember when war was declared, I was in charge of quarters that morning. And I got off of that, and they come down and picked me up and said, get up, you're going. I said, what? They just started. So they sent us to Gunnersville Dam, if you remember that. And we guarded Gunnersville Dam, and I think everybody was shooting at the moon, thinking something was wrong. Anyway, we finally wound up coming back to McClellan, and we went to Camp Hahn in California, and we had quite a nice time there. We used to go into Salinas and have a lot of fun. And then we shipped us to New Fort Ord. From there we shipped out to Hawaii, as you know, the Aquitania. And we were there for approximately 5 or 6 months, and there was quite a few of us volunteered to go to officer school. And if I remember right, there were 8 of us that were accepted. And I remember we had a big party the day we were going back, we could barely get on the boats. I remember going up the gangplank in Hawaii to come home. Ned Mahar was so stupefied, the general had to help him up the stairs to get him on the boat. But it was fun time, you know. We all enjoyed one another. There was a lot of friendship involved. I come back, and after officer school, I was assigned to 78th Division. I was on maneuvers with them down Tennessee and Arkansas, but they weren't as enjoyable as they were when we were with the 27th Division. I can remember being chased to fields where watermelons were. We were stealing the watermelons, and our first sergeant was chasing the hell out of there. I think it was Macy was his name. Bob Macy. And we had a lot of fun. But anyway, I wound up the 78th Division in heavy weapons, and I stayed with them for approximately a year, and then it was getting close to time for the invasion, and they shipped me overseas. I landed in England. I took a course there in motor maintenance. And then the invasion started, and I wound up in Omaha Beach on D+9. And it was just the top of the hill. They were only in about 2 or 3 miles. And I can remember nighttime when the German planes would fly Art 1, and the whole sky would be lit up with tracers. And I can just picture them up laughing because they were up so damn far they couldn't have been hit. But the sky was all covered. The only thing happened with that, we laid on the beach. I didn't dig a hole, put a pup tent up, and I woke up the next morning and that pup tent was full of holes from all the stuff that was falling down out of the sky. Anyway, I joined the 83rd Division, and we had 263 days, the company I was in contact with the enemy. We went down the Brest Peninsula, come back, followed Patton across. We went across the Rhine. We went as far as Zerps in Germany, about 30 miles from Berlin. Everything in front of us wanted to surrender, but we couldn't. We had to back off and let the Russians do it. But like I say, my training was in heavy weapons, but they found out that I had training in Ranger School when I was here in the States. So I finally wound up company commander for a rifle company. And it wasn't very pleasant, but I had to do it. Anyway, I got wounded 3 times in the Ardennes. I was sent back to the hospital. When I come back, they thought they'd give me an easy job. They made me reconnaissance officer. And we used to go out, do all the reconnaissance out ahead of our troops. I remember there was an armored patrol went out to meet the Russians, and they weren't back in 2 days. They sent us out in 5 jeeps. We did find them, and they were stupefied drunk. The Russia was May Day. Everybody was drinking vodka. And I remember I had to drive my own jeep back to our company. But all in all, everybody was afraid they're going to be sent to Japan, but most of the people that were in any length of time, they were given a point system. I think 1 point for every year service, 1 point for every overseas. I think 5 points for every direction, every decoration that you had. So that's what decoration meant 5 points coming home. So I had 145 points, and when the war was over, I was glad to come home. And I'll always remember the time I was in the service. I had my good times and the bad side. But my best times were with members of Company D. That's what I have to say.
My name is Frank Pusatere. I joined the National Guard 3 weeks before we got federalized. And I might say we were the first outfit, the 27th Division, was the first outfit that get federalized in the United States. We went to Alabama. We stayed there a year and a couple of months. We went to California. We stayed in California 3 months. We went to Hawaii, which was probably the best time of my life. We really enjoyed it. And then we got on a boat and went to Saipan. After 15 days in Saipan, it ended my career in the Army. I got wounded. I got sent home. And that's about it.
What was the 105th like prior to the war? Some of you joined
We were all in the war a year before the war.
a year before, and some were even earlier, a couple of years.
Well, they were in the National Guard.
National Guard. What was it like in the National Guard at that time?
Oh, Back in them days, you just didn't go up and join the National Guard. You had to be sponsored. Am I right or wrong, Jim?
Well, I don't know about that. I was 16. I don't remember. Yeah, sponsored. Whoever sponsored me got $2 for bringing you in. I know when I come into the company, Jack O'Brien brought me up, and Harold Bryant was in the office. I was sitting in the company rooms waiting to be called in. Harold Bryant come in. He was a friend of mine. He said, "Are you coming in?" So he took me in the office, and he got the $2 for bringing me in, and there was quite a fight between him and Jack O'Brien. But it was a fun time. Most of the time we just drilled and then had beer and sandwiches after. You got $1 a night for each time you drilled. And they had a basketball team. A lot of people played basketball team, but it was, like I say, we had a lot of fun. That was what it was like. But it was like a club, more or less.
Citizen soldiers. In other words, it was something to do.
Action.
You made a few bucks by going to camp every year, and you were a citizen soldier at that time. When we finalized, we were still citizen soldiers, not well trained, but we were a full Army division.
Now, what did you all think about Pearl Harbor? The whole thing changed. What was that like?
Well, when they bombed Pearl Harbor, I was on guard duty. They spread it around that they burned Pearl Harbor. They bombed Pearl Harbor. Everybody said the same thing. What's a Pearl Harbor? Nobody ever heard of Pearl Harbor at that time. It's hard to believe, but nobody ever heard of it. That night, we moved out. The whole 27th Division moved out of Fort McClellan. We moved out for 5 or 6 days, come back, and we got ready to go to California. And we were the first outfit in the United States, the 27th Division, to leave the United States after the war, to embark on boats and go overseas.
So your first stop was Saipan
After Hawaii.
after Hawaii.
That was my first stop, but 2 of our battalions went to different combat before that.
Okay, they went to...
The 2nd and 3rd. One went to Meighan,
Aniwetok.
and one went to Aniwetok.
Now, none of you fellows were in either of those battalions.
No.
But you got the honor of
I got
observing.
the honor. They took, back in them days, they wanted one man from each company to go as an observer. And we went on detached, you were on detached service. We went with the 106th. And I had to fight along. I was a staff sergeant at the time, and I had to fight along just like a regular under another staff sergeant.
And battalions came back. Now, did you train them for what you had seen? You were
Yeah.
there to observe.
That's what we went for, the do's and the don'ts. We come back, and then I had to have critiques in the field. It was about half a day every so often, not all the time, but whenever I could think of something, I would call it critiquing.
At that point, how well was the division trained for what was coming?
They were overtrained.
We were overtrained, that's right.
Overtrained.
What do you mean by that?
Too much soldier.
We
Not
spent
enough grease.
We spent 2 years in Hawaii after the war, and we did a lot of training. We did whatever. We did combat training, amphibious training. We did hand-to-hand combat training, and it took 2 years before we got into combat.
Was the training helpful?
I would say yes. It toughened you up. The thing about going into combat, if you're tough enough, you're not scared. You're not scared so much. Everybody's scared. But the tougher you are, the less you're scared. You figure, well, the other guy, he can't do nothing to me, I'm tough.
So when did you find out you're heading for Saipan?
We were on the boat probably 4 days, 5 days. It took 15 days to get over there, or right around that. We were 4 or 5 days, and then all of a sudden, they come out with, we're going to Saipan.
And what were the thoughts at that point?
We didn't know anything about Saipan. We didn't know anything about that part of the world. Just Hawaii and all the Hula Hula Islands. So we ever heard of it, that part of the world,
We pulled in
the South
Saipan.
Seas.
We pulled in, I didn't want to cut you short, Fred. Go ahead.
So that's all, I finished.
When we pulled into Saipan, we weren't committed. The 2nd and 4th Marines were supposed to take the island, and they got the shit whaled out of them.
So you were in reserve at that point?
We were on a floating reserve at that point.
For 2
And,
days.
we weren't committed until the 2nd day. They had taken such a beating that they couldn't even continue. They took the Sleeto field, airfield twice, and they got kicked off of it twice. And we left just about dusk. We pulled into Saipan.
What was the landing like?
Uneventful.
As far as I can remember, what they call Purple Beach 2. It was just out of I think it was Kanoa, if I remember. Kona, that's where the sugar cane mill was. They had Jap observers up in the stack, and Saipan was an artillery training center for the Japanese Army. That's where they got all their training. They had that island pinpointed and bracketed in beautiful. Because when them Marines come in, boy, they just leathered the hell out of them. So when we went in, never a shot was fired.
So when you landed, what happened at that point? What time of the day?
We landed, we just dug in for the night, and then we jumped off the next day over across the Sleeto airfield, and there wasn't a damn shot fired. We walked right across the field without anybody shooting. We got in the other end of the field, and we dug in again, and then Mount Capaccio was on our right. A and B Company was told to attack the Mount Capaccio, and that was when the big to-do come between our two generals, our General Smith and Howland Mad Smith, as they called him.
Who was D Company's commander?
By the name of Lieutenant Ryan.
Ryan?
He was the first lieutenant.
What kind of guy was
Emmett
he?
Kaplan was our captain.
No, he
Emmett
wasn't,
Kaplan.
Sam.
Yes,
Ryan was our captain of Saipan.
On
On
Saipan,
Yeah,
Ryan.
Lieutenant Ryan.
got it.
Catlin went to battalion.
When we went up to Sleeto airfield, as we're going up, there's soldiers there, which were the Marines, and they're in position down, and they're in the field. And I was saying, what's the matter with these guys? They can't move. You know, they're not moving. They were all dead.
That's a good reason.
And what the Japs had was those big drums. I don't know if they were 55 or 100 or what, and they used to catapult them up, and they used to kill by concussion. So they got hit by that, and they were right in position where, and that's where, huh? You remember that? No.
I know I was in the airfield.
Because we see them coming over.
So you move across the airfield and it's relatively uneventful?
Well, the airfield changed hands about 2 or 3 times. I mean, the Marines got it and the Marines lost it, then the Marines got it and then they lost it again, and then the 27th Division went in.
Okay, when the 27th Division went in, were you opposed at that point?
Some.
We were,
Some.
the,
A little bit.
the Zeros came in and strafed us.
That was the night before they come in.
I don't know what night they came in.
They come in at night.
They came in during the daytime, and the 69th was alongside me, and there was 2 guys there, and they were dug in, and I'm on the outside, and I says to them, "You guys got any room in there for me?" And they says, "Yeah, come on in." I climbed in, got in there, and a bullet came down, went right through my denim. And if I didn't move in, I'd have got it right in the back.
So after you secure the airfield, what next?
Then that's after we took the airfield. Then we were relieved of the airfield. Then we started to go to up north.
What was that terrain like?
That terrain,
Was hilly a little bit.
it was a little bit hilly there, but the Marine Sergeant Smith, or General, he was in charge of everything, and the 2nd and the 4th Division had the sides there on the
They were on
beach
the
line,
side, yeah.
and the 27th Division had the center, and we had the mountain, and we weren't going fast enough for Smith. Smith always charged his men, and we always maneuvered into position, and that's where the fight between the two Smiths came in, because he said the 27th Divisions were cowards, and we weren't maneuvering fast enough for him, because I mean, we weren't getting in there to get killed like the Marines were. I mean, everything the Marines did, they sent them in by quantity, and they didn't maneuver at all.
You want me to tell you some of mine?
Sure.
You sure? He's got them.
When we first hit Saipan, we went in and we had to get on Amtrak because the Higgins boats couldn't go in on the kind of the coral reef. So we'd get on. I'm a little guy. I had HE heavy mortar shells, 2 on the front, 2 on the back, all my equipment. When I jumped off of the Higgins boat, the tank, I went in the beach. I must have drove in my weight of my body in about 3 feet of sand. So this little guy come over and he helped me with my thing, and we went up to the island, and they had a bunch of jeeps. They had all these wounded guys that were operating right on the beach. And as we went in, I seen the Marines with a flamethrower. The Japs were coming out of a cave, and he had them all scorched, but then a couple of guys were dead. And as we went up, we had a guy in my outfit. He came from the Christmas Island. He was there before Pearl Harbor. And they put him in our outfit. He says, I don't want to go back to the States saying I didn't do nothing for the war. So he stayed with us, but he was a mean bastard. He was a mean bastard. His name was Pappy Reese, and he was in the mortars. So we were walking up. I don't know what happened. The sights on the mortar got lost. He says to me, and it's dark now, you got to go down and find that. I'm saying, F you, with them guys, the Japs were in a tree, they would shoot at me. So I went back, and I seen a guy's B company coming up. And you guys seen a mortar with the straps and the sights? No, I let him go. So we dug in. As we dug in, we got an air raid. I didn't see the airplane, but at the shrink, you could hear them. And the shells were coming down. So now, in the meantime, I see a couple of Marines. They were shooting, and there were Japs in a tree. And he wanted me to go down there. So what happened as we moved up, we hit the airfield. I was always watching where I'm digging. So I was facing, they had like a, what do you call them there? Like a trench where they used to put the airplanes in there. So I didn't want to get near the edge. I figured if they come down, they liable to throw a grenade in them. So we got out of that. So as we moved up, I seen Frankie there. I got bit by one of them friggin' Japanese bees. So I run into a cave, and there was a kid here, lived near me. He got killed. His name was Carm Ciccarelli. He was right there, and the Japs were coming out of the cave with women and kids, and they were Shamoran people. They were very religious, and they had them coming out. So they got him out, and they sent him back wherever they put him. They must have put him in the compound or something. son of a bitch, Pappy Reed, a wise bastard. We went in the holes. He jumped in the hole, somebody shit in the hole. Yeah, that's right. I'm not shit in the hole, got it all over. He stuck. Oh, was he mad as a bastard? So anyway, while we were there was a plane fighting. Jap Zero and American Hellcat, they were fighting. And as they were fighting, and Dasher come down and he starts strafing. Well, I hit the ground and I scratched my chest. So when he landed, they killed him. They opened up with 50 calibers where they were down and whoever did it. And I buried a guy. When we landed there, and I have to tell you this, there was a plane that was dug into the ground, one of ours off the aircraft carrier. So I says to the guy next to me, I don't know if he was a sergeant or what, I forget who it was. So I'm digging out of the cockpit. There was a parachute on the tail of the plane. As I was digging in the cockpit, I pulled the skull, just the bone. Then his torso down here was scraping. It was all like powdery. It was scorched. And I pulled the pistol. It was all warm. So I told the guy, so what we did, we dug a hole. We scraped all the remains. We put a hole in the hole. And we got 2 pieces of stick. We hit it in the ground with the pickmatic and made a cross out of it. And we took his tag off. I put it on there. I know his name up to today. United States Navy Reserve, Paul Dana, D-A-N-N-A. And I put it on the stake there. And then as we got in, it started getting a little rough till the end when they had the big bang. Now let somebody else tell you about it. Nick, you tell them about the man's in charge.
Well, the sniper there, that used to pick them off going along the shoreline. When we got up further, there's a tree, and the tree was dug out, and the Jap would get in from the bottom and get up, and that's where he was doing the sniping from, because they're powder smoke, and we never got him until we advanced up there, and there was the tree, and that's where he was picking everybody off down along the ocean front there.
Well, when we were down here, we were moving up at the mortar platoon. The guy's supposed to be here today. He never wants to come, Joe. Rotation sergeant. And Lieutenant Ryan was the head of was our captain. And our original captain, was up with the CP. So anyway, we were dug in, and I was sitting down like this, having a smoke, and I'm listening to Tokyo Rose, that big snitch. So I'm listening to her, and the Captain Stark, he was from Hawaii, he says, nice guy, nice lieutenant. Ben, used to call me Bimbo. Ben, he's having to make you a runner. Oh, no, I don't want no runner. Oh, no. I says to him, you know why? We had 2 Chinese guys in our outfit. We got them in Honolulu. And their name were Gu and Gan. That's their name, Gu and Gan. One of them had dysentery or the runs. He was always hitting the jackpot. And the other guy was supposed to be the runner. And he got sick. And one of them got killed there. So Lieutenant says, you're going to be a runner. So that's all right. We dug in the bottom of the foot of the Mount Apache. We were like here in the mountains up here. But we were digging in. A few of my friends were going by. And one of them, he got killed. I asked him, come on. There was a fire up at the top of the hill. There was a big fire, and they were shooting down on us, harassing us. So that night we dug in. I was in with these other 2 guys. I know who they are. carbine next to my hole. Well, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, they call me, they said, Jesus, you gotta get out and deliver the message to the CP. I don't wanna get out of the hole because them guys will shoot you. Yeah, then one guy got killed like that. I didn't wanna get out of the hole. I delivered a message, you know. It started to rain like a bastard. So, when I heard the Captain Catlin, Lieutenant Tuger, Colonel O'Brien, and another lieutenant, he says the Japs are gonna use women and kids for a decoy. They're gonna come at us because they had the civilian population top of that hill with a Jap general. And any one of them people give up, we had a speaker on a van, tell them to come down, that we take care of them. And he told them that we were barbarics, we were gonna kill them and all that. And the people believed that. And they started to throw themselves off in the mountain. So it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, it was a big flare, Jesus, lit up like this room, all the way around. Holy Christ, everything broke loose. Big wind screaming and hollering, they were all coming at it. Machine guns, tracer bullets, fire. Well, I said, let me get out of here. I grabbed my carbine. I couldn't get out because they were raking the top of my hole. And I stayed there for a while. Then I got out. We all run back. As we run back, we started fire back at them. And somebody hollered, let's form a line. Let's form a line. So, you know, so we formed a line. We couldn't. There were too many. There were 5,000 against 2 battalions. And half of the battalion was shot up. So anyway, we run by I seen one lieutenant, he was a medical officer, he was shot in the back, and another guy from my outfit was carrying him. And as we ran back, I hit this little mound of dirt. They used to have one of miniature trains go by, used to carry the sugar cane out of it. And I was over that hill. My gun was muddy, you know, from the rain. I put 2 shots in it and ground. So then I see them coming at us. We ran. I went down by the beach and I went over a Jap mine. I jumped over it. I didn't know it was there. I seen that silver there and I jumped right over the mine. It blew up. Somebody must have stepped on it. Well, when I got behind this coconut tree, there were 2 guys in my company. One guy, they were both from Reading, Pennsylvania. They're both Polish guys, big 6-footers. I was with them. They took off. I stayed, and I crawled out towards the Japs in this big field, the high grass. I crawled out there with this other guy. I didn't see him. I crawled back. Now, when they crawled back, they started letting the barrage shells going in. They were hitting the beach and everything. That's when I got it in the leg, both legs and my back, and I don't remember nothing. I just was in new life in front of me. I could see the sun, the moon, everything. So when I come to, there were all bodies near me, dead bodies, guys who were still wounded, guys who could still fight. So the lieutenant, Charette, from the medical, he put on a couple of Japanese socks with sulfur drops on my leg. And I stayed there. This guy dragged me from the beach. Him and another guy, they dragged me up and put me under the tree. And then I stayed there, and there were all the wounded guys there. And then after that, we stayed there all day, and the guys were fighting. Then we got help from the 106th Infantry come up and took over, you know.
That's towards the end of the day?
Yeah, no, pretty near the end of the day was pretty near gone. But they come up and they started to, you know, help us out. So then I lay there, and then the big Amtraks come up the ocean at the end of the beach. And all the guys were running in there. Well, I couldn't run. I says to the guys, leave me here. Don't leave me with them son of a bitches. They'll kill me. So they dragged me, and they put me on a motor. There was no room in the tank. It was filled. I stayed on the motor with a field jacket on me, and then bounced up. And we started to get out of there, and they were shooting at it. And I went down to the field hospital. They hit me with was in a big, big field, like a couple of football fields. There were all bodies there, I mean, wounded guys there, and they were operating right in the truck with a big light right in the truck. I stayed there, and a couple of guys was foggy. A couple of guys come over and see me that were in my outfit. And the next thing I know, two guys were picking me up on a stretcher. And I started hollering. I didn't want to go with them. They were Koreans. I thought they were Japs. They looked alike. They took me down to the field, took me down to the ocean. They put me on a hospital ship. And I was on a hospital ship till I went to New Caledonia.
So the charge began about 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah, about 4, I say, 4,
Well,
4:30 in the morning.
My outfit was on the front line. We were fighting all night. I was in the middle of the perimeter. I was a radio operator. And by 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, everybody started running toward us. They said, we're out of ammunition. They couldn't get to us. And that was called a strategic withdrawal. In other words, we ran like hell. And we ran back to the 2nd Battalion, and they saw us, and the confusion was tremendous. They didn't know what was going on. I jumped in a foxhole with somebody from the 2nd Battalion with a light machine gun. I said, there's Japs out there, and you could see them. So they opened up, and I opened up, and all of a sudden, our hole got hit with fire. Then they picked up again and ran back again.
Was it Lieutenant Ryan, the head of the company?
Lieutenant Ryan
Do
was.
you have any idea?
He was with the company.
He was with the company?
He was with the company.
He was one of the runs that was running with us.
Tell them what happened.
And
Tell them.
you want me to tell him?
Go ahead, tell them.
When all hell broke loose, the Japs are running around like that.
No, that's before they broke out.
Yeah. I'm in the hole there. I was communications sergeant. Frank was my radio man. And when all hell broke loose, I got up and I looked. There's our company commander going down. I says, Frank, this is no place for us. There goes our company commander. Let's go. And that's when we started.
Well, you know what happened? When I was listening to Tokyo Rose, Joe Mariano, he's not here tonight, he come down with the Jeep. And the captain told him, he says, keep your men there, don't move from that spot. So before he got there, we started to get up and go. We told that to Lieutenant Ryan, that Captain Catlin wanted us to stay put. So he says, well, Ruck, we might as well go up. Now you got your mortars here, the front line's here. Now if we stayed here, when the Japs come off of the hill, we could have lobbed our shells in. Know what I mean? We could have shot our mortars. But no, we went up with them there that night. And we were stuck there. What that? You can't shoot a mortar wood up in the air straight. So if we stayed there, we would have saved a lot of guys, wouldn't have got killed.
Whose decision was it to bring the mortars up?
When
Nobody really knows.
No, the night before, when we were going up, O'Brien said, this is a big mistake going up there.
Yeah.
Because it was twilight. And he says, but orders are orders. And that's when we went up there, because nobody had their guns in position. The mortars weren't set up. Nothing was set up.
Well, you couldn't fire the mortars from on top of them. And that was Colonel Bishop's for us to go up there. If we stayed where we were, the way we were supposed to, we could have fired for effect 3 or 4 mortars and lobbed the shells in there. And another time we come into a bunker, all concrete bunker like a Quonset hut. The Japanese were in there. I found in there gun drums. I found opium. I found everything. We were in there. The next shell went in. It went in there. Jesus Christ, my carbine was outside, leaning against the building. When I went out, they were really howling like hell. A couple of guys he knows, one guy in our, remember Skiba?
Yeah.
He got killed there. And another guy and a couple of guys from B Company got killed. Somebody from the 165th Infantry dropped a mortar shell short to landing in our position. So we stayed there that night, and we dug in. As we dug in, I dug my hole, and there's a road, and the Japs come down through the road. We were all dug in. Next thing I know, before they were coming down, I heard something go like, bing, landed right in my head. I don't know what it was. I never seen what it was. It didn't explode. I don't know what the hell it was. So the next morning, during the morning that night, the Japs were sneaking out. As they were coming out, them bastards, guys on a machine gun, you could see the tracers, and you could see them screaming. And they shot them all in the truck. It was right there.
As the attack began to develop in the morning, no order, people were just reacting.
No, no.
Everybody was on their own.
Complete confusion.
And you began to fall back.
Yeah.
If you want to call it that. We ran like hell. If that's falling back, that's what we did.
At what point did you stop?
At the war.
I stopped probably 20 minutes later because I got wounded. I stopped and I jumped in a hole and I started firing at the Japs, and all of a sudden I knew I was all alone. And right as soon as I saw I was alone, that's when the knee mortar shell hit me.
The Navy was firing in on us, and I'm there trying to signal them that the enemy is up ahead of us, that they're firing into us. And I couldn't because everybody ran out, and so then I quit. I went back and waited back. And you could see the prongs coming up from the shells. They're all running around, They had the shells dug in the sand.
So this is back at the beach.
At the beach.
So you were able to make a stand at the beach?
Well, we had no place to go.
Yeah, that's right.
We had no place to go. And Joe here, he almost killed me. Yeah.
Well, how did that happen?
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, the
Well,
waves were so many, they went right on through us. They went right up the regimental headquarters. They stopped somewhere in that area. There were too many of them.
mortars. See, he was with the mortars. He was in charge of the mortars, and they had area fire, and the shells would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 7, I used to squeeze right up. After 7 went off, I was released. Then 8 and 9, back to 8, back to 7. Big hole in the hole, and it kept going the area fire. Yeah.
And a lot of guys were swimming out in the ocean.
Yep.
And there were Japs there were a couple of Japs with the American soldiers out in the ocean. They were swimming towards, there was a destroyer, patrolling American destroyer. They were going to open up. They thought they were Japs. But they picked the guys up. They fed them. They dressed, gave them new outfits, and they went back in. And I seen them planes come off right over it, almost 10 feet over your head, come over them. Planes from the carrier come down. I seen them shoot a rock. I seen a guy from his company. We're in an area. There was a Jap tank knocked out. The Japs got in there and they pinned us down. We couldn't move. They were shooting at it there, and we couldn't get. I was making coffee. I was using the tape off of the mortar canister to cook my coffee, and they started shooting. We jumped in a hole. Then there was a circle of plane going around. It was an American plane. We thought we were Jap. He shot these rockets, and they. remember Davy, Sergeant Davy. Hit him in the back, killed one of the guys from his company. And we were pinned down there for quite a while till they got guys to knock it out.
Were there any officers conducting the defense?
They were just about all gone. Even my lieutenant, he was a regular Army man, Lieutenant Gower. And that morning, it was, like they said, it was just about daybreak. The only thing is, we were in perimeter, and they knew the terrain, and a bunch of them got behind us. And they were up on the higher ground, shooting right down into the foxhole. And that's when my lieutenant turned around and said to me, he says, Nick, get the platoon together and get back to the Jap trenches, which was down at Tanape. It was a Japanese port down there. And we made it back like he said we did. I was running with what was left of my platoon, and I hit that narrow gauge railroad that he was talking about earlier, and that's when I got hit in the shoulder. And made it back to the beach. And when we got down into them Jap trenches, unfortunately, they were up in the goddamn coconut trees shooting right down at us. And just like he said, I'd say maybe about 50 or 60 of the guys spotted this Navy destroyer out there, and they started swimming out. But about half of them made it. The Japs were shooting them right in the water.
Colonel O'Brien was there, and he could have went back the same as everybody else. And he said, as long as one of my men are up here fighting, he said, I'm going to be with him. So,
His last remark was, don't give the son of a bitches a goddamn inch of ground. I can remember that. Because I seen him when he got it. There was 3 or 4 lieutenants trying to take him off that Jeep behind a 30 caliber machine gun, and he fought them off, and they were all overrun. Not only the colonel went down, but the 3 or 4 officers were trying to get him off of there. I actually seen that happen.
Did anybody see Baker?
No.
May I add something? I was on the right flank. I was on FO, and I was the head of the MLR. Didn't know it. And when the whole mob went by, when I come down, there was a fella. He was draped over a machine gun. Now I think I mentioned this to you before. And his name was Benjamin Solomon. He was the medic. Remember, you fellas remember him, Captain Solomon. And he is the one that moved this weapon. The ones that operated the gun, a couple of them got killed, and he told all the wounded personnel to go on back up to battalion HQ or regimental HQ, and he picked up a rifle and started shooting with the rifle. And he was pretty good shot, so he went over and got on this machine gun, picked the body off. And when I come by and saw him, I didn't recognize him. He had, I think, about 80 or 90 bullet holes in the body, but all swelled up. I didn't recognize him, but I read later on that he was the guy that I wrote that note to the Troy Ricky. You know, the thing. Now, may I ask them a question? Any of you fellas, do you remember there was the ammunition dump that went off? That sucker made the whole lot. You remember that story?
Yeah, I was out. Yeah.
Okay, good. Frankie,
I remember.
that?
Sure, I
Remember something
remember.
about it, yeah.
Oh, you do?
A little bit, yeah.
When that damn thing went off, then, remember the cannon used to come out of the cliff? And the
Yeah, it used to come
airplane,
out from Tinian.
they couldn't get rid of that sucker?
From
It was funny.
Tinian. It was on railroad cars, railroad tracks.
It was on track. That thing was, it was about 150 foot high.
That was
damn
outside,
thing come
man.
out.
That was on Tinian.
No, we didn't hit any. It was outside thing, my
Sam,
friend.
the gun was on Tinian, it was firing on
Yeah.
Saipan.
Yeah.
It was only a mile away.
Yeah.
Sam,
Look, Frank,
all right.
the gun, that's where what's name, Sweet Johnson got killed. Remember Sweet Johnson? He got killed up near there.
Jim, we were lucky to be in Europe.
Hey,
Yeah, I know, I saw some bad days, but nothing like that. We had counterattacks, but nothing.
that
bad.
morning,
we went went in with 121 personnel,
About 8 come out.
and
So they did.
18 of us were left. There was 51 or 52 killed, and 51 or 52 were wounded. And there were 18 left. I came in number 17, and a little Jewish kid from New York City came in 18. And then there wasn't enough left of the battalion to make a company. And a couple of days later, I went down to the beach down there, and we killed 4,200 Japs because they had the stakes marked. And as we went along, we counted them. 4,200 Japs were buried in the sand on the beach.
And you know what he's saying? This friend of mine, he's dead. He used to belong here. He run out, and the tanks were going up, and they had the thing buttoned down. He kept hitting his hand on the tank. He said, the Japs are up there. Frank, give me a ginger ale with it. Frank. Hey, in here.
What?
Give me a ginger ale. He says, the Japs are coming too many, open up with the machine guns. So what happened? They started to move up the tanks. He went down, the Jap come out of the bushes. This is no shit. Jap come out of the bushes. He had that saber, he went like that. Remember Sal Farina Chink?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He went like that. Right for his head. Whatever happened, the Lord must have been with him. He happened to put his head, then he went down like that. Went over his head. There was a Navy officer right there, and he shot the Jap. Because they got guys from Massachusetts, National Guard. They come off of the island, Christmas Island, and they brought him into our outfit. And I got acquainted with one guy, not too good because we were moving out. And they put in a paper here, it came to this post. If anybody knows my uncle, can you please notify me? This guy's name was Frank Daglieri. He was on with my friend on a machine gun. Now that day they broke through. He had about 200 Japs in front of him. And this is not exaggerating. The gun, the barrel of the gun got white frosted. That's how hot it got. So he was shooting at them. And Sal says, this friend of mine, let's get out of here. So Sal went out. By the time he got out, don't they kill him there. So then they had a piece of the paper here if they knew his uncle, his nephew wrote. So I mean, none of them guys knew, but I knew. So I went down to Hartford, Connecticut. He worked in Hartford, Connecticut. He worked in a 22-story building for, what's that vice president was? He was running for, vice president. Lieberman?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. He worked for Lieberman. I took a bunch of pictures. I showed him. He said, did you know my uncle? I said, yeah, I knew him casually. I didn't get too acquainted. So he came up with me, and he came up from the islands, and they put him in our outfit. And I got to know him, but I didn't know him that well, So he got talking to me and everything. I stayed with him for a while. And I told him everything. And we come home. I was supposed to hear from him. I never heard from him.
So after the attack, where the survivors go?
Survivors.
We went down to Espiritu Santos. Yeah. And a couple of days later, after the Banzai attack, Ralph Callanjone comes walking into the company, and I look at him and I says, "You're dead." He says, "What do you mean you're dead?" I brought him down and showed him where he was buried. Showed him his cross, his name, and everything right on there.
Would they make a mistake?
See, what happened was that we all had our names printed on the denim. Evidently, they didn't have the dog tags, so they must have taken it off the denim. Whoever had it, the denim, they put the name on there, and there it, and and I showed him, and there he was, and he was still alive. He was glad to see that.
So how long were you at Espiritu Santo?
Well, we were down there, oh, maybe about a year, I think.
Until the next campaign.
Huh?
Until the
No,
next
you were there a year, only a couple of months.
That's right.
We reorganized.
No, you wasn't there, no, yeah.
No,
We were there about 10 months.
we reorganized, and then we went into Okinawa.
Yeah.
Now, who was the company commander at that point? Was it still Ryan?
No.
No, Ron got wounded at Saipan.
Albanese. Captain Albanese.
Because
He
Captain
was-
Catlin was wounded too.
Yeah. He was from California.
And he was with you when you landed in Okinawa.
Okinawa.
What was Okinawa like?
Oh, that was just as bad as Saipan.
You didn't get wounded.
Huh?
You didn't get wounded, did you?
No,
You didn't. Oh, I didn't get wounded.
no, I didn't get
They
one.
had your milk.
Never got a scratch. Never sick a day in the Army.
You, the landing was uneventful at Okinawa?
Pretty much the same. We were out for about a week or so out in the ocean on the ships, and we just sat and watched the ammunition dumps and everything blowing up. Then we went in, and that's when let's see, Lieutenant Gilly was in charge of the 81 mortars, and that's when he got killed when we're going down towards Naha, and he got killed. Then when he got killed, then they gave me the charge of the platoon.
At that point, had you heard any of the media reports about the performance of the division on Saipan?
Oh no, everybody on good reports about everybody, except towards the end there. Like Jimmy was saying, he had 50 points or something. How many points did you have?
145.
125?
45.
45. I had 136 points. And when they dropped the A-bomb, then Stilwell told Griner to send everybody home that had 85 points or over. And then all guys are going home, and here we are, we're getting ready to go into Japan. We're on the mop-up. Stilwell is coming up, and this soldier is there, and he yelled at the Stilwell. He says, "When the hell are we gonna get home?" He says, "Everybody's going home with 85 points, and we got over 100 points, you know." He says, "Why?" He said, he gave Griner the orders to ship us out, but he wouldn't have enough of men to go into Japan. So then he went right up to Griner, and he says, "You get everybody out of here within 24 hours. And boy, you want to see it. We were out in 24 hours, so everybody had over 85 points.
So Griner took over after Smith,
Yeah.
and what were the thoughts about Griner?
You know, when you read my thing there, no comment.
We heard there was a little song about Griner. Did you ever hear it?
Well, I mean, we didn't care for him because he didn't send us home when we were supposed to.
I don't remember. I wasn't there.
No, that was on Okinawa.
Oh, yeah.
Now Okinawa, where did the division go in Okinawa?
What was what?
Where did the division go
They went to Japan.
while you're on Okinawa?
When we're on Okinawa, we done all the mop up. And, you know, instead of them mopping, you know, by sections this way, they put us going up through the middle of the island, up and down, up and down. And the Japs were in there, and we flushed them out.
So that was the main assignment for the division, is to mop up?
It was, no. We fought, but when the A-bomb was dropped, then that ended the war. That's when the mop-up came. But there were no Saki raids and that on Okinawa. But up at the end of the island up there, they were all jumping off the cliffs.
That was on Saipan.
Yeah, and Okinawa too.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well, you know, on Saipan, when they come down afterwards, they have women and kids. You know what they had? Bamboo poles with bayonets on them. Sticks, knives, shovels, pitchforks. They killed one of the lieutenants. Lieutenant King from Beacom. Stuck him in the belly with the pitchfork. And that morning after everything was all quiet down, this guy was supposed to come here tonight. I told him, what'd you do, Joe? He said, I went up and he says, I could see like one end of a football field to the other end. He says, there were Japs and Americans on top of one another. He says, I seen a lot of the guys he was talking to maybe a couple days before that. They were all hand-to-hand fighting.
Now, the Japanese used the women and children?
Yeah.
They put them out in front.
They used that right from the beginning of Saipan. They used it in the other end of the island mostly. The town of, what was the name of that town? Saipan? No.
Garapan.
Garapan, yeah. They used it, the 2nd Marines was in Garapan, on the outskirts, and they used the women and children a lot. That's the stories we heard.
You know, another thing I can't understand, I like to watch the History Channel. I learned a lot from that. Now, I seen the other night it showed the blunders that the United States made in the Pacific.
Yeah.
Now, they were going into Saipan. Here's what they always show them on Tarara, 2nd and 4th Marine Division. There was 3,000 Japs on Tarara. And we lost more than they did. And the Japs, there were only about a handful left. But that poor bastards, they jumped off in the water. They drowned it. Half of them drowned it. Because they weren't getting support from the Navy to drop them shells. See? So, when they were going into Saipan, 2nd and 4th Marine Division, you could see them with the helmet that had the camouflage. Then it showed the Army guys with the regular steel helmet. And I'm looking at the picture, see if I know anybody. They don't mention the 27th Division. Just 2nd and Marines and 4th. No, 27. What the hell do you think? We were there playing marbles. I can't understand that, why they didn't give us a recognition.
That was only a movie set. They didn't do it in a movie.
No, that was the real thing.
No, it was
When
real.
they were talking about
Yeah.
movies, a real thing.
On
They
the
never
History
mentioned-
Channel.
I know it was,
That,
but
that wasn't a movie, Frank. Listen, it was the real thing. That it was a regular snapshot.
I saw it too.
Did Ralph Smith get a bum deal?
I think he did.
Definitely.
You're not kidding, he did.
Our general, his name
He
was
lived to be
Smith.
over 100. One of the things nobody talked about, but Saipan was the first island that the Japs had before the war. They had 100 years to fortify it.
And you know who that island belonged to?
And another reason was our Navy, without the immediate armada of Japanese Navy, and we had no Navy, very, very little Navy support. That made it a lot tougher.
Well, go ahead.
What a lot of don't know is that Bill Halsey, when they had that fleet, and the Japanese force struck some of the islands down below, and with Halsey out there, they couldn't make it. And unknown to us, at the time after they went and took television in and found how many they had in there, they moved in 2 more divisions that were headed south. We didn't know it, and that's what we were up against. The Marines had got clobbered at this time too, but our Navy intelligence, our military intelligence, they figured there was only about two Jap divisions on the island, plus the artillery. 3 divisions that after our people went in to connoiter the thing.
You know, the island there was supposed to be a small island. Estimate about like he sneaked in. Our Navy was at a fight, and they had the Japs of Guam, the Bahamas, you know, but that that saved us a lot. They were more than they had. They had us down the ship before we told us to make out.
Over after,
A lot of them, like, he was strict, and that he was a great guy. He had all the captains and all the lieutenants shivering when he walked by. He had them all shook up. I guess I was the only one that could talk to him, because I had the nerve to talk to him. But,
Remember Walter Wynn, the bird colonel, come in from West Point?
yeah.
He was a regimental.
So, I down out of the can't do than that. They just job do so. But they have guys in Africa, France, good army.
You can't take anything away from the Japanese, because they were strictly soldiers.
excuse me just a second.
And everything else like that. I mean, you couldn't find them. American soldiers would be marching up with the gun over this way, you know, walking
don't
through,
care,
you know.
right.
They did, you know, they
The
didn't,
American soldier was just a soldier, you know.
just a soldier, you know. They,
And they were good.
oh, they were
They were
good,
good, but they didn't give a damn, like, we're the Japanese or German soldier. The sergeant said, attention. They stayed at attention. We'd say F you or something like that. That's the way we were.
What, was there a difference between the National Guard troops and, reserves, the people that came in later? Was there a certain
Basically,
corps?
basically
you
they were the
couldn't
same.
beat the National Guard.
The National Guard was training for years. That's why I think the National Guard, they were in before me. I went away with the Guards, but I was Army United States. I got in just when they federalized them. But the National Guard, they were training for, well, Jimmy been in since 38. They were training. They used to go up to Plattsburgh, DeKalb Junction, Peekskill. They used to train all the while.
And what did we use, Jim? What did we have?
We had
mortars.
rain barrels for mortars.
We had, no,
And we had signs
drain,
that I am a machine gun.
drain pipes, you know,
Yeah.
the drain pipes, they had them tacked down to a board, that was a mortar. They used trucks for army tanks. We had shit is what we had.
Well, you say about training. He said before you can be overtrained. I left there and I wound up with the company. I trained men with the 78th Division, and I thought they were the best in the world as far as soldiers. Of course, I thought the 105th was fine because that's where I started at. But after 13 weeks training, I thought anybody is as good as anybody's got 2 years. And they wound up to be good soldiers. And in my opinion, the guy was the biggest screw-up, was the first guy to stand up and fire the gun. He didn't run.
Right.
He stayed
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
And it's
All you
surprising how
goofs.
things are like that.
You goofed up turned out to be good soldiers.
You got to it all depends on who you're fighting with. Now, Germans had tanks, they had everything else. Sure, they were good soldiers, but we were better.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that they were disciplined and better than us, half of them.
Well, I don't know. I see 20,000 come in and surrendered us.
I know, no, what I mean is we don't.
They weren't too proud.
You talk about overtraining. We had a colonel by the name of Hopkins, Colonel Hopkins. Everybody remember Colonel Hopkins. He was tall, he was lanky, and every step that he took, the difference between the feet was maybe about 4 or 5 feet. And he loved to walk. And that's what he'd done to us. When we were in Fort McClellan, Alabama, what we got was 32, 40, 45-mile hikes. When we went into the Arkansas maneuvers, Tennessee, Louisiana maneuvers,
Arkansas.
we had a march from Tennessee into Louisiana. We did 60 miles in 3 days with full field equipment. You didn't dare take your shoes off at night because that one night that we did take our shoes off, they called a forced march. Nobody could get their damn shoes back on because their feet were so swollen they couldn't put the shoes on. That was a fiasco, that was. But I want to say one more thing and then I'll shut up. On Saipan, we had 1 day's rest. That was it. And that day's rest that we had was just the day before the Banzai. And I had a lad, his name was, we called him Uncle Fudge Addington. His name was Addington. He was Uncle Fudge to us. When we were supposed to clean up and rest that one day, and all of a sudden, Uncle Fudge strolling in, drunker than a skunk. And I turned around and I looked at him and I said, Jesus Christ, I don't believe this, you know. Who was spotted him before I did was Colonel O'Brien. And he turned around and hollered to him, come over here. So Uncle Fudge goes over to him. He says, what's your name? Where are you from? He says, Sea Country. I knew he was in trouble, so I walked over and I says, he's one of my men, Colonel. He turned around, he says, that's all right. He says, what I want to know is, where the hell did you get drunk? He turned around, he says, Colonel, he says, just a short ways from here, he's from the south, so there's a passel of liquor. Call it a passel, you know. He said, the shellum got into it, turned it over, and he had 3 or 4 quarts of liquor on him when he come in, and there was all American stuff too. The colonel turned around, he says, remember where it was? He said, yes, sir. He said, well, there's a Jeep, and there's a little trailer. He said, I want you to go back, fill that goddamn thing up, and spread it out amongst the battalion. I'll never forget that as long as I live. Everybody got high-eyed that day. That was just before the Banzai was the next morning. That was the only day's rest that we had in 30 days.
You know, when I first went in there, being a little guy, the captain says to me,
You remember that, Joe? The only one day we had.
the captain says
Did
to
you?
me, I'm gonna make you my orderly. I was a dog robber. I didn't give a frig anyway. Them guys used to get up, go out. I go up, straighten out. And then he had the spats, them army spats. Big leather thing, and he had the liquor behind there. I'll do a job on it. I mean, when he sees the fucking bottles was way out. So I was drinking at him. And guys, I'd be left sleeping on the cot. And guys would be out with the mortars, you know, learning the thing. And one day he says to me, why ain't you going to town? I said, I ain't got no pass. So I've only been in the army to the veneer, you know, he was a character. And he says to me, you dumb bastard, you see all them guys going over the 108 gate there, they dug a hole through the fence. It was me. But he said, don't get no trouble. I don't want no trouble with the MPs. Yeah, I had it pretty good. Then after, you know, after the maneuvers, I come back and I got out of the army. And then I told my brother, I says, I'm looking for a job. I was supposed to go to work in Clewood and Peabody. I said, a letter come in, let me know, my brother Manny. There's a letter, one-way ticket to Camp Upton. I stayed in Upton 2 or 3 weeks. Well, one guy did in Upton. He was from New York. I see Joe Louis down there. Oh, Christ, I seen a lot of. And what happened, this one guy, what they did, he lived around the city, you know, around Brooklyn or New York, near there. They call his name to go to Utah or California, or way out like that. He'd never go. He'd get lost, you know. So what happened? One day they called his name to go to Fort Totten, New York. Hey, he was right there. But every time they call his name, they can't find him. And when they can't find you, they're going to go. They ain't going to wait for you. They put the guys on the train. That's what he did.
Well, gentlemen, it's getting late.
Okay.
I'd like to thank you all very much. It's a very informative evening, and we appreciate you coming in tonight.
When you coming again?
After this war.
The next war.